Hey everyone, Brandon here from TruckSafe. The FMCSA is rolling out a major change in June of 2025 to how CDL drivers' medical certifications are processed. Whether you're a fleet manager, safety director, or CDL driver, these changes will have an impact on how medical exam results are handled and how they get associated with the driver's CDL. So it's important you're up to speed. That's what we're tackling in this video, so stay tuned and do us a favor by clicking those like and subscribe buttons below. Alright, so this revised process was actually finalized through FMCSA rulemaking back in 2021. But because of IT-related delays, the FMCSA had to push back its implementation several times. Now, the new compliance date is set for June 23, 2025. And barring any further setbacks, that's when the industry will need to fully transition to this new process. So what exactly is changing? Well, up until now, when a CDL driver goes in for a DOT-required medical exam, they receive a medical certificate, or med card for short, from their examiner, which they then have to take to their state driver's licensing agency and associate with their commercial driver's license. The state is then responsible for updating the driver's record to reflect that they're medically qualified to operate a commercial vehicle. That certification then shows up on any motor vehicle reports run by that driver's employer or others. On the surface, this may seem like a fairly straightforward process, but in reality, it's been plagued with inconsistencies and delays. Some drivers forget to submit their medical certificates in time. Some states are slow in processing them, and in many cases, this has led to CDL drivers being incorrectly downgraded or even placed out of service due to an administrative issue rather than actual medical disqualification. That's where the upcoming change comes into play. Under the new process, FMCSA will be shifting responsibility for transmitting medical exam results from the driver to the medical examiner. Instead of handing the driver a certificate and leaving it up to them to submit it to their state licensing agency, medical examiners will now be required to transmit exam results directly to FMCSA via the National Registry of Medical Examiners. FMCSA will then send that information to the appropriate state driver's licensing agency, which will use it to update the driver's CDL record. No longer will CDL drivers need to submit paper copies of their med cards to their licensing agency or to their motor carrier, nor will they have to carry it with them in the cab of their trucks. Now, at first glance, this might sound like a positive change, and in many ways it is. By streamlining the process and removing an extra step for CDL drivers, FMCSA is aiming to reduce errors and make sure that medical certifications are updated accurately and on time. In practice, this new system introduces some new concerns, potentially, especially for fleets that rely on quick and accurate record keeping to stay compliant. One of the biggest risks is the potential for delays in data transmission between FMCSA and state agencies. If there's any lag in processing the results, there's a real possibility that a driver could be incorrectly flagged as not medically certified simply because the state hasn't yet received the updated information. And when that happens, it can lead to a CDL being downgraded or even a driver being placed out of service, potentially costing both the driver and their employer valuable time and money. But again, that's not so much a new concern, rather an uncertainty about how the new process will function in practice. For trucking companies, the change means that monitoring CDL status is going to become more important than ever. Even though drivers will no longer have to physically submit their medical cards to their licensing agency or to their carrier, fleets can't afford to assume that everything is being processed correctly behind the scenes. If anything, this change makes it even more critical for carriers to be proactive about checking medical certification status and ensuring that drivers remain compliant. It's also worth noting that not every state's system is currently equipped to handle this change smoothly. While FMCSA has been working with states to integrate this new reporting process, the reality is that some states may experience hiccups as they transition to the new method. That means fleets need to be extra vigilant, especially in the months immediately following the implementation date, to make sure their drivers' records are being updated properly. So, with all these changes on the horizon, what should trucking companies and CDL drivers be doing now to prepare? Well, first and foremost, fleets need to make sure they have a clear process in place for verifying medical certification records via motor vehicle reports. Even though drivers won't be responsible for submitting their own certificates anymore, safety and compliance managers should still be regularly checking MVRs and ensuring that all medical certifications for CDL drivers are up to date in state records. This is especially critical for drivers who are renewing their med cards close to the implementation date. Any delays in processing could lead to unexpected problems. Drivers also need to be educated on what these changes mean for them. While they're no longer required to submit their own medical certifications, CDL drivers should be checking their driving record to make sure their certification has been properly recorded. If they notice any issues, they need to work with their carrier or their state licensing agency to get that issue corrected as quickly as possible. As always, drivers also need to ensure they timely renew their medical certificates to avoid any problems caused by processing delays. Also, an important point here is that this change in process applies specifically to CDL drivers. The DOT medical exam process for non-CDL drivers is not changing, meaning they will still be issued paper med cards and must provide those to their carrier and keep copies with them while they are operating commercial motor vehicles. For fleets that use third-party MVR monitoring services, now is a good time to confirm that those services will be equipped to handle this transition for CDL drivers. Some monitoring systems may need to be updated to reflect the new process, and it's important to ensure that there won't be any gaps in how medical certifications are tracked and verified. Another key step is making sure that hiring and onboarding processes align with the new rule. Carriers should review their policies to ensure that they're not relying on outdated methods for verifying a new CDL driver's medical certification status. Since medical examiners will now be transmitting results directly, the process for confirming that a driver is qualified may need to be adjusted in those policies. With all of these changes set to take effect in June of 2025, now's the time to start preparing. The last thing any fleet wants is to find out too late that their drivers are being incorrectly downgraded or placed out of service due to a processing delay. Taking a proactive approach now by reviewing procedures, verifying records, and staying informed will help ensure a smooth transition when the rule officially goes into effect. If you have any questions about these changes or how they'll impact your fleet, we're here to help. Check out our full article on this topic over at trucksafe.com and be sure to subscribe for more updates on critical FMCSA compliance changes. And if you've got any thoughts on this rule, drop a comment below. Let's discuss how fleets can best prepare for what's ahead. For even more in-depth information on these types of regulatory topics, be sure to check out our innovative online compliance courses for safety managers and for drivers over at trucksafeacademy.com. Also, if you're looking for an easier way to access and understand the Federal Motor Carrier safety regulations, check out eRegs, the first app-based digital version of regulations over at eregs.app. Lastly, be sure to subscribe to our newsletter at trucksafe.com/subscribe and follow us on our various social media pages for the latest highway transportation news and analysis. Thanks for watching.